Right, what have I got today? Boosh, right, it's another Astrolux. Big fan of the Astroluxes. I have this anyway all the time on my windowsill, and this is the FT03 by Astrolux. This is the FT, if I can remember rightly, it is the FT02S. So we'll look at some of the similarities, because one of the things I did like on this one was the slightly recessed button. I would prefer it more recessed, but you get a nice thumb gap there. It's been great, never had any problems, and it's a super thrower. This is more of a floody, but we'll explain what that means and what sort of light this is. Okay, so this is the Astrolux, the FT02S. And like I say, it is using, in fact I didn't mention, but it is using the Kubbi XHP 50.2 emitter. But we'll go through what the different emitters are. So the different emitters on this are the SST40 or the aforementioned XHP 50.2. So what's the difference? You're probably thinking, well, the SST40s will come in at a slightly lower lumen count, but we'll go over that and what that is and why that is. Slightly different tints. So if you can see, you've got the SST40 at 6,500 Kelvin, which is the tint. So that's a cool white, very sort of, or cool white, some of the manufacturers will call it, like through night and what have you. The XHP is exactly the same, 6,500K again, but then you can get a 5,000K, which is a very warm, nice, natural light. It's more like sunlight. And you can also go for the 57,000K. Now that's what I've gone for. That's why there's a tick here. So the 5,700K is what I've gone for here. So you're probably thinking to yourself, well, hang on now. Other than the tint, what is the difference? Well, they're slightly different emitters, slightly different technology. You'll get a slight less output from the SST40s. However, with the SST40s, now these are Astrolux's figures, not mine, you should get about 100 meters more throw on the maximum lumen settings with those emitters. So if you want a little bit more light pushing out, you may want to go for those emitters. So you're probably thinking, well, okay, what's the difference? Well, the maximum lumen count on the SST40s is about 7,000 lumens. That's from 4 emitters in total on this light, and the 4 emitters in total on turbo with the Kubbi emitter there, the XHP 50.2, you're going to get around, as long as you've got a decent battery anyway, you're going to get 1,100 lumens. But we'll go over the batteries and why you're going to need a high amp drain battery there for that. So enough of me waffling, let's get into this. There's 3 colours. You can get the black, the sand, or the green, and I've gone for the green because, you know, I think it looks quite nice. So let's see what you get. A little bit of that. Boosh, not interested in that, get rid of that. Some instructions, which I can't bother to read because they're quite extensive, get rid of that. Some free O-rings. Now the O-rings are for top and bottom, so between this section and this section you're going to have O-rings, because this whole central tube is removable. So I'll show you that, so you can remove it from the top or the bottom. So in other words, this central section can be removed. The good thing about that is, without just having the tail come off, means that I'm presuming in future they're going to maybe produce a shorter version of this, so you can use something like a 26350 battery or something similar like that, or a smaller battery anyway. So nice to see. But the O-rings are there. I mean, O-ring wise, it's fine. I'll show you the insides here a little bit more. So there's your O-ring there, nice and fat and juicy looking. None of these weedy little ones that fall to bits. I haven't had any stripping issues, and stripping issues are when they're weak and they're flimsy and they get in the way of the threaded section here and they can strip. I've not had any problems like that. These are decent high quality. In fact, if we zoom in a little bit, I'll make, so we'll zoom out again there. Okay, so we'll have a quick look here. Now you're probably thinking, what's this? Well, we'll go over that, but let's quickly look at the spring. So there's the spring, and if you notice, it's a, okay, so we'll have a quick look here. Now you're probably thinking, what's this? Well, we'll go over that, but let's quickly look at the spring. So there's the spring, and if you notice, it's a double spring. So you've got a one on the outside and then another one. Now, the reason for this is not just because you're going to get compression issues with certain lengths of battery, but it allows, you know, more resilience when you're using the longer batteries. So it's not going to get completely compressed and be useless for shorter batteries in the future, because this will use 3 types of battery, and I'll explain why. So we'll quickly go over the 3 types of battery you can use. So you can use, here is a 18650. That just happens to be a Samsung 30 Cube. It's got a sugar wrap on it there. And there is also, if I remember rightly, this is a 26650. I'm just using a Fogstar one here because this was the only one I was able to get with a decent output. So you can see there, that's the milliamp hour rating that I've used for most of the testing on this, although I have tried all three types of batteries. The vast majority of the time that I've been carrying this, I've been using this battery because I wanted to have plenty of run time. So you can see it's the 26650, and if we zoom in a little bit there you go, continuous discharge 25 amps. You may want to make sure you go for a battery of at least sort of 20-25 amps because this uses a FET driver, so it's going to pull a lot of current from the battery. Now bear in mind, most batteries will sometimes have a figure of, it'll say like this will do 30 amps. Yeah, but will it do that continuously? You sometimes have two figures, so you may have like a continuous discharge figure which is lower than the other figure. One is just for momentary uses such as you know, for vaping and things like that. So just bear that in mind. You want a continuous discharge with a good high rating. I've also been testing it with a 21700. This just happens to be a moly cell. If I can get it to focus there you go. This happens to be a moly cell and a high amp drain battery. I had no problems with any of these. They've been great. So if you wanted to use this, you take this section out. Now it's a two-parter, and it also has its own O-ring on there, which you can see. It's got an O-ring on there, which just keeps a nice sort of tight fit there. So what you could do is you can put your 18650 in here, and then what you do is you plonk that in, and then can you see it keeps that in place, so you can use that with the light. And just to prove that that works, which I'll show you. So 18650, and this light should illuminate. There you go, that illuminates and it works. That's great, no problems with that. So you would use both of the inserts for that. If you just wanted to use a 21700, what you would do is you'd remove this section. You don't need that, so get rid of that. And then you would use your 21700, and that sleeve makes up the difference in diameter because that's not as wide as a 26650. So we'll try that just to prove that that works. And obviously the positive terminal needs to be towards the head on this light. So the light should illuminate here if this battery works. And there you go, fine, no problems there. And the light illuminates, great. So we'll try the other battery. Now I know this works because I've been carrying it with this. I've carried this for over 2 weeks now. I like to carry these things a long period of time. We'll put those to the side one moment. And obviously there's a lanyard in there, but I'm not going to go over them because a lot of people aren't particularly interested in the lanyards you get. If you do want to connect it though, I'll show you how that connects. There's the connection method there. So it's out of the way. So by making it go out of the way like that and not being on the bottom, I'll show you, it means you can tail stand this light because it has a flat bottom. There's no battery insert there because, magnet insert, because you're obviously not going to be sticking this on anything. But you can tail stand that and ceiling bounce or whatever your usage case happens to be on this light. So great so far. Okay, so let's have a good look at the light here. So very, very pocketable. However, if you're wearing skinny jeans, you're not going to fit this in your pocket. I've not had any problems. I've carried the majority of this in a coat on a left chest pocket and a tactical jacket. It's been absolutely fine like that. I've tried carrying it in trouser pockets, but you kind of need to have this down the bottom, and then it doesn't really work unless you're wearing, like, you know, tracksuit bottoms or something like that. It's a larger light, but because of the output, that's understandable, and it does produce a lot of heat, but we'll certainly go over that. So, but like I say, just looking at the aesthetics, I like it. I like this large knurling pattern rather than the small knurling pattern. It reminds me of the Claris lights, which I like for that. It's a very nice, grippy it's design. I like that. It's chunky. Hard wearing so far. I've carried this for weeks and I can't see any of the paint coming off from anywhere. So it's got a nice thick anodization. They're calling that, I think, the anodization type 3. Basically, they dip it in a bath of chemicals and it attracts the covering here. It's not like a normal paint. And in regards to hard wearing, you can probably see there's a couple of dints on here. I will zoom in a little bit there. You see these two dints. So what happened was I was having a bit of problems with a lock, and I used the bottom of this to bash the barrel on the lock and try and get it to work. And I smashed it a couple of times as hard as I could, and I got it to move. We'll zoom out there again. And it just shows you that this is quite hard wearing. Don't copy me. If you've got a lithium ion cell in here, do not copy me and don't go around bashing things, because lithium ion cells, if you bash them open in any way and the air gets to them or moisture, you could be in trouble. So I just want to point that out. Don't copy what I did there, but I like to be rough on these lights just to make sure that I'm properly testing them. So like I say, yes, it dented, but nothing particularly, no issues, and it still works, no problems. I've dropped it, but I only dropped it on gravel, and it's got a nice depth on the bezel here, which is good to see. So it means you're unlikely to crack this. I certainly didn't crack it, but that doesn't mean it can't crack, because this, after all, you can hear there is glass there, so just bear that in mind. And there's your 3 emitters, and obviously I picked the Cree emitters on mine, so you can see them there. Now you're probably thinking, well, what's all this kaleidoscope effect? Well, what they've done is basically it's a smooth reflector, so it's trying to get a little bit of distance, so it's not so good up close, but they've split it into 4 sections, and I think they've done a pretty good job. There's a minimum of what I call flower petaling, so we'll turn that down a little bit and I'll show you that. So if you can see the pattern, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this, and you can see as I rotate it, there's not too many sort of spiky, horrible artifacts, is there? That's not bad. There are some artifacts if you look closely, but that's to be expected from such a large head and a 4-section smooth reflector. But it's not bad. I was pretty impressed. There's lights which I don't like, and this isn't one of them. It's done a pretty good job. And just to prove it, you can see my thumb, I am rotating this as I do that, and normally you would see like jaggies, but I think they've done a pretty good job. This is using the Anduril UI, which I really like. It's extremely extensive. I'm going to go over that slightly further into the review, and I'll put a little thing up at the top so people can skip that bit if they want to, because it's going to be quite extensive. And I know people complain and go, oh my God, I wish I had a time machine. I'm not sitting for 10 minutes listening to this. Well, those people can use fast forward, and the life will improve immeasurably, I'm sure. Okay, so there is charging built into this. So that's what this is here on the exact opposite side of the power button. So you have this flap. Now they're claiming this is an IPX8. So in other words, they're saying you can put that into water, 2 meters on top of it, underwater, for a couple of hours, and you shouldn't have a problem. The problem is when you have these lights with these little flaps, I sometimes doubt whether you're getting that level of waterproofing. But however, look at this one. That doesn't lift it unless you lift and pull. See, now that's a pretty good seal. I will be honest, that is a pretty decent machine seal there. I'm pretty confident that will give you at least sort of IPX 6, 7 ratings. IPX 8, I don't know. It could be true. That's what they're quoting. It also comes with a 1.5 meter drop rating, so if you drop that on concrete, it should be okay from about 1.5 meters. However, bear in mind that doesn't take into account there's a cell in there and that may become damaged. That's just something you want to think about. So in regards to the charging, let's give it a shot, because this is a Type C. Hooray, at last, all these lights are coming with Type C. If you can remember a couple of years ago, everyone used to complain saying, stop going on about Type C. Well, yeah, well, look who's laughing now, because it's becoming the norm. So there's Type C, and I'll just show you a Type C cable. There's one there. So I've got a Type C, and obviously Type C, it's reversible. It doesn't matter which way around you've got it, it'll go in. So we'll try that. So we'll plug that into the light. Then this is a standard cable, so you have an A-type on the end, and I happen to have my trusty X-Star here, so we'll plug that in and see if it charges. Yes, it seems to be charging, so the light's on there. There you go. So it's running at this moment in time, ignore this figure, so 5 volts, and it's running at a 0.5 of an amp, or 500 milliamps, so pretty good. Now you notice it drops a little bit there, but the battery's nearly full. They're saying that that'll go up to 2 amps. I've not seen that when I've charged, but maybe I haven't let the battery run low enough to get that. But I'll do some future testing and I will update with my findings there. But they're claiming that. Now, quite interestingly, on here, in fact, I think that's finished charging there. If you noticed, initially it had red here, then blue in the middle, then green. It's hard to see on camera, unfortunately, but trust me, it's green here, then you've got a blue, and then there was red. Now, as the battery tops up, the red disappears, and you get just blue and green. So I think that's some sort of indication. I've noticed that, although I couldn't find any literature on that, and I certainly couldn't find anything in manuals or anything. They don't seem to document that, but that's what I've found, just as a representation. But it does have battery test, which I'll go over in the UI section. And if you notice that's gone out, I presume that means it's fully charged, which is great. And that's about right, because I've just charged the battery I think yesterday, and I haven't used it since then. So there you go. So that's how that works. But the question is this power delivery compatible? So let's try. So this is a normal cable. This is a Type C to Type A, but let's try a power delivery cable. In other words, Type C to Type C, because that's becoming more common now. So there's Type C in that end, and then we'll put the other end in the light. Let's see what happens. Yep, it's working, or it's attempting to charge anyway. Obviously that's trickling because it's nearly full, and that'll probably stop now. So about 5 volts, but that I have tested that a few times, and each time it's been fine. So at last I seem to have a light with power delivery and Type C, so nice to see. So we'll get them out the way. So no problems with that. That's a good plus point. And then, like I say, this flap is pretty decent. There you go. So I like this. Now you're probably thinking now, okay, well, what about the turbo? Like I say, on this emitter, you're going to get 1100 lumens. However, there's a lot of heat with that. So if I run this on turbo, you're going to get a lot of heat. So I'll show you that. So we'll prop that up a little bit. Right, I'm running that on turbo, but what I want to do is I'll put that there, and then I've got my trusty thermometer here. So it's a contactless, so what we'll do is we'll put that in. Now you can see the ambient in this room is 21.5 degrees C. So if you look at the bottom figure, that's the outside temperature of the metal here. So we're running on turbo, and it's saying it's at about 25 degrees, 26 degrees. It's starting to climb now. So the heat is now pumping out, and it's migrating through the metal there. So we've now got 27 degrees. Now from a couple of testing, this generally, it starts to step down. In other words, the amount of lumens that come out seem to step down once this hits about 50 Celsius, which is pretty damn hot. And unfortunately, I'll just let that continue to run there. It hasn't stepped down yet. It's starting to feel hot, but it's not particularly hot yet. The heat does eventually migrate, and it has the problem that the MSRD4 has, where you can't hold on to the damn thing because the heat gets further and further, and it gets to the point where you're holding it like that, like, you know, rather gingerly, and it becomes too hot to handle. So obviously just bear in mind on this emitter, it becomes so damn hot you can't hold the thing. So it's still going there. It's now up to 30 Celsius. I'll just ensure that's on turbo. Yes, it is. Yeah, it's on turbo. Still climbing there, so we're now up to 30. Oh, now it's gone down. It went down a little bit there, but that could just be moving of the target there. Still going, so we're now on to 34, still climbing, 35 degrees, still going. Like I say, I noticed it had to hit somewhere around 50 degrees or 122 Fahrenheit before it said, right, I've had enough. And you see it seems to go down in tiny little steps, and the overall output drops. Let's see what we're up to there. 36, 37. For some reason, I can't seem to get it to go any higher. 37. Unless probably what's happened is I've been fiddling with the config, because you can't change the thermal config. But from factory settings, out of the box, I tested it multiple times, and I got up to 50C. But bear in mind, I have been fiddling with the UI, which is very extensive, and we will go over that. So I'm just going to check the temperature. Yeah, it's already hot down on the handle here, so I'm going to turn that off before it melts. Okay, so pretty decent light. Let's just check. Yeah, that's pretty hot there. I'll put that to one side. Okay, so just bear in mind, you don't want to have it too hot all the time. You don't want to keep overriding the turbo and resetting it, because you can damage cells. Okay, so let's go over some pros and cons, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show the UI, because it will be pretty in depth, and it takes quite a long time because there's a lot of stuff, and I'm not even going to go into the advanced stuff. So pros. Okay, so let's think about this, right? 3 different battery sizes, 18650, 21700, or a 26650. So you probably think, well, what's the damn difference? Well, bear in mind, you know, capacity wise, as they get bigger, they're doing the same job, but as they get bigger, you get more capacity. In other words, larger runtime, but heavier weight. So this is already quite a chunky light anyway. I think the 26650 takes it into that range of a rather chunky heavy light. So if you don't want a chunky heavy light, this probably isn't for you. But there's those 3 battery choices there, which I really like. I like the insert. I think this has been well machined. I really like it. It's even got a gasket on it. I think they've done a good job. It's Type C. It actually works. The flap's decent. It takes power delivery, so excellent. Well done. I appreciate that, Astrolux. It's got Angular, which is very, very in-depth and a brilliant UI, although you could argue that, okay, yeah, it's brilliant, but it could be too complicated for some. Okay, we'll discuss that when we do the UI. It's powerful, 1100 lumens on turbo, although obviously, bear in mind you get the heat. This is still hot there, I can feel the heat on it. It's a decent size for what it does. It's a floody beam rather than a thrower. It's not brilliant up close, but you can turn the levels down to get the usage case that you need. It's got E-lock, but we'll go over that on the UI in a moment. It's got fast 2 amp charging there claiming. I was never able to get my thing to go up to 2 amps, but okay, those are their figures. It's pretty decent. It's always worked on power delivery for me. So cons, well, first con is, and I want to discuss the button. Here's the FT03, okay? See that thumb indent, watch. See how my thumb is in the indent, you can't see the button. Brilliant. Means if you pull this out of the dark, and bear it in mind, most lights you pull out in the dark, you instantly feel it with your thumb and you're in, okay? And then you press the button, on, off, okay? And if you look on a profile view, it's not proud of the reduced section here, so it's less likely to get knocked. Compare that to this, so there's the old one. Compare it to this, look, it's sticking out. So what is the point of having this thumb indent, this recessed section? Watch, if I put my thumb on the button, can you see there's a big gap? Look, it's right up there, look. It's not even, my thumb isn't even in, it's not even in that hole, look. I would like to see them reduce this prominence here and bring that right down so it works the same way as the 03. I don't know why they've done that. There must be a reason, but I think that needs sorting out. Maybe I mean, bear in mind the light has just come out, or at least recently anyway. I've carried this for a period of time. This may just be teething issues, but I would have preferred to have seen that less prominent because it's harder to knock by accident. Although, to be fair, yes, they do have a lockout, which we'll go over. So buttons should be recessed more. It produces a lot of heat on turbo. Like I say, you go, oh, that's getting hot. Oh, that's getting hot. That's getting hot. You end up holding it like that, like an idiot. You know, trying not to fry your fingers like wieners. But okay, that's to be expected on such a massive maximum lumens. Okay, so fair enough. And like I say, the charge, they're saying 2 amps. I've never noticed that. But okay, that could just be me or the battery, so I may be at fault. But other than that, it's doing pretty good. So really, I think this is a damn good light. And for the price, if you can get it on special, for this amount of output, I think they've done an exceptional job. So I just want to show you size-wise, if we compare it to one of my old favourites here. This is the Fireflies E07, beautiful light with auxiliary LED, so they're on all the time there. And then there's the light on, beautiful light, nice high output, but it's pocketable, you see. And this is using a 21700, very pocketable. And you're getting a similar result. Yes, that's going to give you a little bit more flood and a little bit more push out, but I think size-wise, if someone said choose between these two lights, I'd probably take this. I can easily put that into some jeans pockets. Look, I can cover that with my hand. I can't do that with this. It's massive in comparison. There you go, side by side, and you're not getting a lot more extra. You could say, well, numerically you are, 1100 lumens. However, once you get past a certain amount on lumens, you're not getting that much more. But it's just something to consider. But again, you could say, well, okay, this gets hot just as much as that. Yes, it does, but I think you're saving a lot of space, especially if you were both using them on a 21700 cell. So that's just one of the other options. But obviously, the price on these is still 10, 15, 20 bucks more than they should be, in my personal opinion. But you're getting a decent light, and I've never had any problems with them. Some other lights that I compared it to was the Nightcore E4K, and interestingly, that is a 4 emitter. Very similar. They've put it into 4 sections, but obviously, look at the width. It's just not going to be as floody. Nice output on this, but if you remember, I hated the UI. I slated them a bit on that, but I've just got to be honest, it was an irritating UI. And I remembered again how irritating it was when I was doing the comparison shots, and quite expensive as well. You've also got the good old Astrolux F03S, again, 4 emitters, but it's using a TIR rather than some sort of smooth reflector, so you get more of a nice flood. And this just happens to be a special edition here with a copper section, which you can see it's got the patina, as people call it, or as I call it, oxidization and dirt, but it gives it a nice look if you like that look. But again, Astrolux, so decent, but this is obviously using a much smaller battery. Something else that I compared it to was, because of the similar setup, was I mean, it's old now, the BLF Q8, still a brilliant light, but obviously this is massive and chunky and much heavier, and this is much more floody, because look, size-wise, it doesn't use up all of its available space on the diameter here. I don't know why they chose that design, but it still works and it's great. It's a good light. Great for power cuts if you're ceiling bouncing and things like that, but you could do the same with this at a lot less weight, but obviously higher capacity, because this uses 4 18650s if you want. I also compared it to, I mean, I don't want to belabor the point here, but here's a few of the other lights I compared to. The U-Torch C8F. Obviously there's so firm versions of the C8s, but this happens to be a triple emitter with a smooth tri setup there. Pretty decent light, quite floody. That's what the F stands for anyway. And then the underrated Convoy S12, again triple emitter with a. I tried to go for lights which were a similar size and used this sort of segmented section, but obviously this was just a triple there. This was the lumen top that I tested. Very nice light. I really like this. But I've tested them all and I've done them all together, but we'll go over those in due course. Okay, so we've gone over the pros and cons. Let's move that out of the way. So it's time for me to go over the UI. I'll try and do this rapidly, but bear in mind it's quite complicated and it takes a while. So up here I'm going to put a little bar, a little scroll bar, so if you hate this sort of thing, just skip, okay? So I have warned you. Okay, so let's begin. So Andural UI, I'm not going to go over all of the things, but I'll go over the quick basics just so you know how this light operates. Okay, so on and off is dead simple. So on and then off. Couldn't be much simpler than that. On and then off. So very simple. Now it has ramping mode. So if you can ramp it up, so hold and it goes to its maximum there, and ramp and down again, and it goes to its minimum luminance there, as you can see there. Perfect. In fact, let's just have a nice view of the LED emitters there. Nice. So you're probably thinking, okay, well, are there any special modes on that? Well, there are. You can change the ramping, so that's smooth ramping at this moment in time. So when that's on, so we've got that turned on, if you do 3 quick presses, so 1, 2, 3, there's a little flash there, an almost imperceptible flash. Now it's going to be in a stepped ramping mode, so watch. See how you can see, so it steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can see the steps, so you can count them and go, well, I know which mode that's in. And then 1, 2, 3 takes you back to smooth ramping again. So if you did want to change from smooth to stepping ramping, you can do. Okay, so 2 clicks takes you to turbo. In other words, it's going to go to its absolute maximum output. Bear in mind, this is a FET driver, so you need a high amp battery to get the maximum. So I've done that on this. So if we go, there's on, there's off, but if we go double, that's super bright. I can feel the heat on my hand there. That's very, very, very bright. That's your maximum output. You can literally feel the heat. That's your, especially on this emitter anyway, that's your 1100 lumens on turbo. So nice to see, but bear in mind you're going to get the high heat on that. Okay, so what's 3 clicks? Well, 3 clicks takes you to battery check. So we'll do that. So bear in mind it's off at the moment. So 1, 2, 3. And then what you need to do is you need to count out what it's flashing. So it's going to flash out some digits here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Did you see that? So there's 4 and then 1. So that means this is currently running at 4.1 volts, which is pretty full. It's going to be 4.2 when it's maximum, and then once it gets way down in the low 3s, you really need to start charging that. So it's a voltage representation of capacity of the battery rather than like a percentage of total capacity. So nice to see. Now within them you've got sub modes. So if we go back to that, so 1, 2, 3, so we're in battery check mode. Now if you do 2 quick presses, it should take you to what's called sunlight mode. So there, so you're probably thinking, well, that doesn't look particularly special, it's just some light. Well, it isn't just some light, because what that'll do is that will run for an hour, and it'll very, 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 very gradually over time go down to nothing and turn off. And I presume that's either for people who are romantic or people who are scared of the dark and scared of skeletons and ghosts. I don't know. I don't know what that mode's for, but it exists. If you want to go to the next mode within the battery check mode, so another 2 quick presses, I'll take you to beacon mode, I think, off the top of my head. So 1, 2, yeah, beacon mode. So it looks like it's off, and then you get a momentary flash, a momentary flash, a momentary flash, and it's going to repeat that. So if you wanted to use that as a beacon on a position, like a rally point, or you were camping, or there was an SOS situation, you could probably use that. You also have a temp check. So if we do it again, right, now it's going to flash out the temperature. So let's do this. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, 9, I think that was. So it's saying it's 49 Celsius, which seems a little bit hot. I think I probably need to calibrate that though, and I don't think I have calibrated that. But once you have calibrated it, and the calibration settings obviously are in here, you need to use something like this. So you'd say, right, well, the ambient temperature is 21.1, so you'd calibrate it to that, knowing that that's a genuine figure, and then that would flash out in Celsius what the temperature is. So it's a handy feature to have. I don't know why you would use that, because if you want to know if it's hot or not, you just do that, and if you go ow, then it's obviously hot. That's what I do for temperature check. Okay, so 4 clicks from off, obviously. 1, 2, 3, 4 is lockout. There was a few flashes there, and it will not operate normally. However, it has a backup mode. So whilst it's locked, so let's say you pull this out your pocket, but you don't want to lock it. If you press the button, you get a low mode, so you get a very low amount of light, and it's great for reading maps and not giving away position and things like that. I really like that. It also has a secondary backup mode, so if you press it again, so watch, 1, 2, you get even more, but again, it still doesn't disengage the lock. But I love that feature. You've got a little bit if you need it, a little bit more if you need it, but it doesn't disengage the lock, and you can put it back in your pocket. But obviously to take the lock off, it's another 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're back to normal again. So you can turn it on and ramp it up and ramp it down again. Perfect. So that's your 4 clicks. 5 clicks will take it to momentary mode. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, it's now momentary mode. In other words, it will momentarily function or not. So it's off if I press it. See? So you've got to press the button, and it momentarily works, but as soon as you let go, it's off again. Now you can't turn this off by doing another 5 clicks. Unfortunately, you've got to undo the tail cap to disengage the circuit like that, and then put it back on again, which I don't really know why you've got to do that, but okay. I presume that's just if you want to hand it to someone, I don't know. That's your 5 clicks. Now there's 6 clicks, which is muggle mode. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what's muggle mode? Well, muggle mode is similar to normal mode, but it doesn't let you go all the way to its highest setting or all the way to its lowest setting, and it gets rid of all the advanced stuff. So you turn it on, you can ramp it up a little bit there, but not very much. That's probably about 70%, and then ramp it down, but not very much there. It doesn't. So you're taking the top end and the bottom end off, you're still allowing ramping, but that's it. And then to come out of muggle mode again, I think it's another 6, is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There, it did flash, so we're now back to normal, and it'll ramp all the way up to super bright and all the way down again. So you're back to normal. Now, under Andural, normally you would have, you could use 7 clicks, but 7 clicks is only if you've got lights with auxiliary LEDs. This doesn't have any auxiliary LEDs, it just has the main ones. So there are a few little more things that you can do, and they're hidden away between other button presses. So the other button presses are click, click, hold. So the click, click, hold, I'll show you. So click, click, hold. Right, so what's this doing here? Well, it's taking us into candle mode. So if you imagine a spluttering candle, so if I get it there you go. In fact, I think I might be in lightning mode there. That looks more lightning to me, so there, that's candle mode. Okay, so that was my fault. So initially from factory, it should, click, click, hold should take it to candle mode. Can you see how that's flickering? Like a natural candle light. The intensity in candela, for want of a better word, of a candlelight changes. You know, it flickers as the amount of fuel being burnt and oxygen balance changes. So you can see that flickering there. Within that mode, you can click and hold and go brighter, so you can have a bigger candle or lower for a a tiny candle in a church there, or you're trying to be romantic. You can see that there. Okay, so that's your first mode. Now if you want to go to the next mode, you would double click. Okay, so we're on candle. So if we do it again, right, that's bike mode. So you get a nice beam, but within that you get a purposefully irritating flash. It's to give away a position and to help with roads and things like that, and it makes it harder for people to ignore your presence. So that's good for safety on bicycles, although I probably wouldn't have this on the handlebars of a bicycle, but yeah, that option is there if you need it. So the next mode I think is party mode. Yeah, it's party mode. In other words, it's a strobe. I'm going to cover that slightly because I don't want to irritate people who don't like strobe. So within that you can turn it up and down. So if we click and hold, see how it becomes more rapid, and then if I click and hold again, it changes how rapid it is, and it should slow it down, or does it speed it up? I can never remember. So there, that's it. So right there, it changes how rapid that is. So I'll cover that up. So if you click and hold, it will change it, and it will get faster, 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 really fast, and then click and hold and it should go the other way. That's it there. It's getting slower, 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 slower. So you can change the frequency of that strobe on party mode if you want it. Now the next one is tactical. Double, right? So you're probably thinking, well, what's the difference between party and tactical? And again, I'm going to cover that because I don't want to irritate people. Well, it's going to use maximum brightness for that. In other words, it's trying to tactically blind an opponent if you happen to need to do that, if you're a ninja or something. Okay, so you've got that, and then I think there's one more, which is lightning storm. So if I go double click, there's lightning storm. So it tries to emulate a lightning storm. In other words, no light and then a flash and then a flicker and things like that. It's an emulation of a lightning strike, or the visuals of a lightning bolt anyway. And then click it and turn it off again. Okay, so you'll be pleased to hear that's the end of the UI. Okay, so we'll give this a mark. Pros, 3 battery sizes, Type C, and it works with power delivery. It's angular, which I really like, although some people could say that's a con, it's too complicated. Good flood, I like it. It's powerful, good size. It's relatively good size for the output you're getting, although you could argue, well, just get this and it's less, but it's enough. Yes, okay, that's an argument, but this is using a larger battery and you get a larger capacity. It's got E-lock, which actually works. They're claiming 2 amps. I wasn't able to get that, but it's there. Cons wise, I think that should be recessed more. A lot of heat on turbo, and again the charging issue, which I've mentioned there. And size, you could say, well, it's a little bit overwieldy. Also the tints, I wish there was a warmer tint in this emitter, but that's life, and that's the way it is. So enough of me waffling. I'm going to give this a mark out of 10. I'm going to have to give it 9. It does everything it sets out to do. It's got all these battery sizes, and cons wise, it's me being picky about a damn button, which probably isn't an issue anyway if you've got E-lock out. Heat on turbo, well, you could say, well, all lights have heat on turbo, so I'm just nitpicking. And charging, well, that could just be my battery. So I have to give it a good mark. 9 out of 10, especially for the price. I think they've done a fantastic job. Well done, Astrolux. Power delivery seems to work. Hooray! And Type C. I think they've done a really good job. Like I say, I would have preferred to have seen warmer tints, but again, that can sometimes just be a taste thing. I prefer a warmer tint, more like neutral, or as in sunlight. But enough of me waffling. Let's get outside and I'll show you some beam shots. And I do apologise, I wasn't able to do the level of beam shots that I would normally do, and the reason for that is due to lockdown, I'm restricted. So I apologise for that. So I was only ever able to film whilst I was exercising in the dark and walking along. So apologies for that, but enough of me waffling. Let's get outside.